to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Thursday, March the 6th. Jason Moore, Mike the Fantasy Hitman. I am Andy Holloway. Welcome into the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Fun episode for you today. We do it every year. Sometimes Jason has the assistance of a little black book that he writes in during the year, things he wants to remember.
Yeah, I don't do that remembering thing no more, so you really got to look back and take notes as you go along.
Are you the, I know we're not the youngest, but we're also not the oldest.
No.
We're right.
We're right where we should be.
Right. And are you one of the kind of people like myself that prefers to write on a notepad or like a sticky note versus the digital age?
Yeah, I do prefer that process. Like when I'm scouting players, it's funny. I've got my little black book, and we've talked about that before. For running backs, I always use my black book. And then for the other positions, I do it digital. I just prefer the process for running backs, and I love
That's weird.
the act. It is a little weird.
That's weird.
Love the act of pen and paper and all that. I ain't got time for that with those other positions.
So we're sharing three things. Each of us are sharing three things, and then we'll have one that we'll share together. It's our 10 Things to Remember episode, so that'll be fun. We got some news to talk about as well. We also have a giveaway. We're giving away a signed Drake London jersey, which I'm surprised Jason has not confiscated after his trade in Dynasty last year.
I did not realize – I knew we were about to do a giveaway, but I did not realize that we had a signed Drake London jersey to give away. And I just saw that in the doc, and that is
You're
awesome.
going to enter.
I'm going to enter for sure.
It's free.
Where do I go? FootClanGiveaway.com?
Yes.
I'm on it.
All right. Well, Jason will be competing against all of you. If you want to be in there, go to FootClanGiveaway.com. It's free to enter, as Mike said. And you can find us over on X at the FF Ballers. The quick question of the day comes in from YouTube. ASW73 writes in, what is your best I told you so player prediction where your prediction came true and no one believed you? So
I'll kick it off because mine is a homegrown negative.
I hated it.
Yeah, I mean everybody did. Everybody did, and based on where he was drafted, everybody hated it. Mine was Marvin Harrison being a bust for fantasy football, a bust pick for this season where he was being drafted. My whole take was that he is absolutely not going to be a bust. But there's just for him to return on the value of where he was drafted at the 1-2 turn felt outrageously high. And, on the Cardinals, the system, it wasn't a knock on his talent at all. But that draft capital was higher than we have ever seen any rookie wide receiver before. I think the second highest rookie wide receiver might have been Malik Neighbors last year, who was rounds later.
That might be right, yeah.
And so it just felt, Look back. Marvin Harrison did not have a bad rookie season. And everyone in the fantasy football world thinks he was a bust of a rookie, and it was simply because the expectations were that he would come in and do what we have seen other rookies do. We've seen Jamar Chase come on. We've seen Justin Jefferson come on and be a top 5
he had a bad rookie season.
Wide receiver. He did not.
That's my I genuinely believe that for the NFL, it's a bad rookie season.
For the NFL, that's a bad rookie season?
Yes, when you're drafted that highly and your contribution to the team was that it lacked that much meaning over the course of the year, then yes, I do think it was a bad rookie year. If you were to ask him the question, he would say the same thing. The fact that there were press conferences on a near weekly basis about production, utilization, that's a bad year for Marvin Harrison and the expectations. And then obviously The fantasy is the compounding aspect. And I read this question from YouTube, and the when no one else believed you part was certainly true of this. This was where you went out on the limb on this show, and it didn't seem like there was a path for him to have a year this bad. But yeah, 62 receptions as the number one in a Cardinal offense, that's a failure.
I don't know, 8 touchdowns as a rookie, that's a success.
It was weird because like raw production, 62 for 885, that's fine. Like I think it's a little disappointing for a player being drafted in the top 5 at the wide receiver position. But those totals don't look horrifically bad, but it's when you start remembering the story of like he had like 3 spike games, and then you have just so many games under 50 yards.
54% catch rate, awful. 52-yard a game average, awful for the number one with Kyler.
Certainly disappointing.
No competition.
They're 100% disappointing. Disappointing to everyone, disappointing to the NFL. But I don't think it was bad. Bad would be, another top 5 rookie pick at the wide receiver position, Corey Davis, who comes in and has 375 yards as a rookie.
Yeah,
like that.
It wasn't career ending. That's for
that's
sure.
what I'm saying. It wasn't objectively bad. It was just a disappointment for what the hopes were. I still think he's going to be very good.
So it's interesting because I'm looking at our entries for this little quick question, the best I told you so moment. And unfortunately, I'm realizing, and maybe this is just the way it is, but it's all hate.
Yeah.
It's all hate.
Yeah.
Like you
We're good at the hatred.
You went away from the consensus on Marvin Harrison. My entry to this, I told you so, was most certainly I was anti-Anthony Richardson. When the world wanted to anoint him and draft him highly and make him the guaranteed fantasy producer, and both of you opposed me on that, and it was like, so that's hate, right? It's going against the grain on the excitement. And Mike, your answers, all 3 of them, hate.
I mean, look, anger and hate they're powerful emotions, but it was for me. It was kind of the 3-pack of I was 100% out on Stroud at ADP, Travis Etienne at ADP, and Rachaad White. Like these were guys that I had on literally 0 of any of my teams last year where I was the primary drafter. So I mean, not that I saw it going as bad as it did, but like Etienne, I was like, yeah, finally, we finally got you. We finally caught up to you. That you can hit a couple big plays here, but other than that, you're incredibly inefficient.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting on a 10 Things to Remember episode that sometimes knowing who not to draft is as important as knowing who to draft. Obviously, getting the right guys in the end is the more superior methodology, but if you can just avoid some landmines in those early rounds and you could be confident in that, and especially if you're playing in a multitude of leagues, you're not going to have that player anywhere. That's a huge win. But we're all not.
No, and it's not all hate. But just to add on to your point, Jay, is sometimes having a contrarian stance against a player leads you into another player. I wouldn't say I was the highest coming out of draft season like Bucky Irving. I wasn't wildly in love with anything from him. He's a smaller guy. The production wasn't what I wanted. He was a lower draft pick, but I was so opposed to Rachaad White that I'm like, I'll give this guy. He's a rookie. I haven't seen him play in the NFL. I'll give him a chance. So sometimes it directs you to a better option.
Well, and
sometimes
that's what in some ways disliking Richardson was what the path to Daniels was. Yeah, to Jaden Daniels later. It was like, hey, take this other player that's 5 rounds lower. Because everyone else is enamored with this unproven, my point with Richardson was just that they're like the same level of experience.
Yeah,
like
the ADP
it's
was
like
so drastic.
They're both rookies, so
yeah, I think it's a good thing to remember, as Emperor Palpatine, said, let the hate flow through you.
Right.
I am the Senate,
and that'll lead you to good, happy things later.
Let's talk some news.
News and notes from around the league.
Franchise tag deadline is over. We talked about Higgins on the last show, but Sam Darnold, they did not use, the Vikings did not use the franchise tag.
I think it was only 2 tags this year.
Yeah, it was the lowest amount in quite some time. So, Sam Darnold, I think it was predicted on the last episode, they're going to have an opportunity to let him go test the waters, see what's out there. We all made our predictions. I believe, Jason, you said he'd go back to Minnesota.
That was my prediction.
And
someone had the Raiders.
Mike went with the Raiders. Yeah, I think I picked the Giants. So we'll see if the demand for Sam Darnold is there. This was, I don't know, an exclamation point on the season, I guess. Saquon Barkley, a 2-year extension with the Eagles.
Hoo-ha!
They just signed him last year.
They made him the highest. He's now the highest paid running back in NFL history. Maybe this is how you make up for not letting him go for 2,000.
Right.
You're like, listen, take a seat, secure a title, and we'll make it up to you with $36 million guaranteed. The Eagles now have Jalen Hurts, Saquon, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith all under contract through 2028.
Man, it is fun to be an Eagles fan right now because they have so much money invested in this offense, including Lane Johnson, their offensive line, a lot of this offense is under contract forever and so expensive. And then their defense, and this is why they won a championship, when you hit on so many rookies on one side of the ball for a couple years in a row, now all of a sudden they've got this superstar defense that has rookie contracts for another 3 years. They are going to be a tough cookie to crack.
A tough cookie.
Is that a thing?
No.
Tough case to crack?
Yeah.
Tough
Bunch
cookie
of
to
tough
crumble?
Cookies? Just tough cookies?
Just tough cookies?
I don't know.
Me either.
Darius Slay was released. Bradbury released, and they've got them young secondary stars to go with. So Metcalf officially requested a trade, DK Metcalf, from the Seahawks, and the Seahawks have agreed to explore other options. He's in the final year of his deal. They also released Tyler Lockett, who was kind of on his last hurrah there in Seattle.
JSN currently expected for a 90% target market share of the wide receivers.
The strange things are going on up there in Seattle, which, I mean, first, shout out to Tyler Lockett for I know he's not done. He's not retiring, but he's
entering the Jordan Wizards phase of his career.
But it was an incredible run with Seattle for Tyler Lockett. This dude was great for the team. He was very fantasy relevant for a long time.
Oh my gosh, for fantasy, he was
just a hat tip to Tyler Lockett.
Thank you for your services.
Yes.
Because he got to an age where everyone doubted him every single season, and then he just kept producing. He was the wide receiver 15, 14, 9, 13, and 13 in a row. That is not many wide receivers in like NFL history could say they were top 15 5 seasons in a row without missing, a season due to injury or anything like that.
All while taking 2 hits along the way.
That's how he played.
Sliding down after every catch. Christian Kirk expected to be released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was something that we talked about on the show, that we saw happening.
He'll get a job.
Oh, for sure.
He'll get a job, but he is not. I think Christian Kirk he's a role player that will definitely help a team.
Yeah, he will. We have spoke, and this is what makes me believe DK Metcalf will get traded. The same reason Debo, despite being older and really looking bad to my eyes last season, maybe it was an pneumonia or whatever, but it wasn't a good season. He had a big contract, still got traded because there's just no other options. So the fact that this year is a weak draft class and a weak free agent class, Christian Kirk and Devontae Adams, who were released, they're hot commodities.
Yes.
Kirk is so weird because now you've got 7 years of Christian Kirk and you've got 1,000-yard season. Yet throughout the entire 7 years, you always knew the potential of Christian Kirk, but he has not played enough games. That's kind of what it's come down to for him too. 8 games this year, 12 games the year before. He had 1 breakout campaign in Jacksonville, but it's Brian Thomas time, and they're moving on. They're saving some money, $10.4 million. And right now they have Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, and Parker Washington, and Josh Reynolds on the roster. The Jets said goodbye to Devontae Adams. They had the cursory, hey, we're going to go find a trade. Go save us. No, they released him. And so no Adams anymore in New York. No Rodgers in New York.
No Adams and no Tyler Conklin either, which is 32% of the Jets' targets being vacated. That's a pretty large number, and we have shown in the past that vacated targets, oftentimes the running backs step up into that passing game. So maybe Breece Hall, I mean, that's where he thrives.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get back more involved in the passing game.
Show me their passing game.
Tyrod Taylor.
Okay. Yeah, there was a comment that it would not be shocking if they started Tyrod Taylor. I don't think it's going to make a lot of Jets fans excited.
Or Breece Hall managers excited.
Or Garrett. I mean,
no.
That would be
you know who would be pretty excited though?
Tyrod.
Yeah, Tyrod.
Oh,
Taylor.
he'd be pumped.
He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm a starter," and then
for
everyone else would
for
be
2 games.
Yeah, he will. They're going to want to address the backup position for sure.
Jamal Williams has been released by the Saints. Gardner Minshew released by the Raiders. CeeDee Lamb's contract restructured. Nico Collins' contract restructured.
The Dem Boys also. I thought I saw they restructured Dak as
Dak
well.
as
Like
well,
they're really trying to clear up some space for
Cleared
something.
up $36.6 million.
Yeah, Micah Parsons.
He's gonna
cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the Bears have back-to-back trades for Jonah Jackson and Joe Tooney.
This is what you love to see.
We love it.
This is what you love.
So, look, the Bears making quick adjustments to the offensive line, an offensive line that was a disaster last year. And, Caleb Williams does not have a shot if he is in the position he was last year. So they're making moves through the trading mechanism.
It makes me wonder, coaches come in and you have your system, you have what you thrive at, but then you also are inheriting a roster that are the players that are going to be on the field. So sometimes you tailor what you're going to do to the players you have, and sometimes you tailor the players you have to what you want to do. But it is interesting to me, Ben Johnson coming over from the Lions, where I think their real superpower, like we talk about Gibbs and Amon-Ra and, the great offense, but their superpower was their offensive line. That's what allowed Jared Goff to be so good. That's what allowed their running backs to score so many touchdowns. And so that was a big problem for the Bears. Obviously taking sacks for Caleb Williams, just a brutal rookie season in that respect. So this is just so great to see him coming in and be like, that's what we've got to address stage one. And I expect them to go after a running back too and kind of just try to emulate what worked so successfully for the Lions, just to elevate Caleb Williams by saying, let's get an offensive line and a run game.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift is not the answer in Chicago.
No.
He's not the kind of running back that is going to take pressure off of your quarterback. They need their Nick Chubb, their David Montgomery, their kind of grinder that can go out there and get tough yards behind a good offensive line.
They should draft Travion Henderson.
I mean,
as their Gibbs?
Yeah, as their Gibbs.
There's going to be some options in the draft at running back, and they're going to be well positioned to pick somebody up. But if you're in a dynasty league, if I have DeAndre Swift, I'm going to go ahead and play up these 2 offensive line acquisitions and ship that man swiftly out of town.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add, Mike?
I do want to mention, because Tom Pelissero is at it again.
He's your favorite guy.
He tweeted, it was good information. Daria Gumbawale.
He's a good reporter.
Just listen, hold on. Daria Gumbawale is re-signing a 1-year deal with the Houston Texans. Like, this is good information to have.
Yeah.
People are like, I don't care about a Gumbawale. That's fine. Why is this being brought up? Because Pelissero called him a phenom in his tweet. Stop paying him.
You're saying agents stop paying Pelissero? I don't think he's paid. I think this is a
man,
rub your back.
This dude is elbow deep in the cookie jar. He is just fistfuls of cash.
You're saying that Daria Gumbawale, special teams phenom that is yet to make a Pro Bowl in the special teams area.
They're re-signing third down back and special teams phenom.
You took this very personally.
Tom.
What was the last one?
Dalvin Cook?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how'd that one work out, Tom? Did he even get a snap?
What did he call him?
It was egregious, whatever it was. It was
I gotta look it up.
It was
Kyle find that.
It was the most ridiculous.
It just seemed like it was copy pasted from the agent, like, this is how they want their player talked
I
up.
need to see Tom's tax returns.
Language
is on the take.
Language
you don't report that.
is important. Because if Dare Ogunbowale and Dalvin Cook are phenoms, then what's a really good player?
They don't even, their agents don't need them to say those superlatives.
It was waiting.
Oh,
a
there
marquee edition.
A marquee
That's what it
edition.
was.
Dalvin Cook. Did he take a snap last year?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did he?
Oh yeah.
Cook
Let me
was
see.
waiting for the right opportunity and always felt it was Dallas. A marquee edition in Big
Oh,
D.
he did. He had 9 opportunities.
Yeah,
on
I
the
knew it wasn't
season.
much more than one. All right, we'll take a break. We'll jump.
Well, I'll be back, Tom, because I'm sure there's
Yeah.
more tweets coming.
Yeah, I can't wait. Mike versus Tom is going to be
Oh.
a great theme.
This is great. There's more here from Pelissaro going back. Dalvin Cook, just talking about last year, said he never had a chance to establish a rhythm with the Jets, but had a long run for Baltimore in the playoffs. One of the top free agents still
Wait,
available.
that's recent?
No, that was back. It's just the series of events where you're talking about 4-time Pro Bowl Dalvin Cook. This guy is like
He's a
building
Dalvin Cook
up.
stan.
Maybe he won a championship.
Maybe he
with
signs
them.
1-year contracts with these agents. I don't know. We'll take a break. We'll jump into our 10 things to remember, our lessons learned from 2024.
Don't forget to remember these things.
You know, we've done this show for a while. We know each other very well. It's always funny when something gets stuck in Mike's crawl. You know, he is not a let it go man.
No,
He is a
he's
forever
not.
and always man. He is probably, you know, like his eulogy may end up including this great battle with Tom Pelissero at some point in time.
It's going to be, and now a list of people
We used to
that
have-
Mike hated.
We used to have, no joke, a channel in our company Slack.
Wait, did we get rid of that? That's
That
not
was-
it?
It's still here.
Hashtag Mike's Gripes.
I
because he needs to share things with the world.
Just a private channel
I
for
feel
your
like-
complaints.
I feel like too many people muted and left that channel, so I take my complaints to the big boy channels.
I'm browsing the channel, and it's like, you know, Brooks jumps in there for a minute and he goes, "What's the deal with all these late afternoon games?" That's a Mike's gripe. We've all got them. There are still people on that channel. Oh, I'll be darned. All right. I'm sorry. I'm looking back. You know what chaps my cheeks? Trying to enjoy a morning coffee outside and freaking flies won't go away. That's what Mike is posting in there.
That's so good.
Oh, dude. That's great. All right. I hit the drop, didn't I?
You did.
You did.
All right. So let's jump right in.
Oh, you know what slaps my saddle, Mike says, when your manager books a flight and spells your name wrong. Picture of the airport tickets. Oh, Mike, never stop complaining.
Oh, man.
I need to. Don't they have those like super subs on Twitter?
You just need to move to a city that's not Arizona where kids play outside so you can go get off my lawn fully.
What'd you find when you can't read?
Some not safe for work gripes in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. It does start with no. Go on. What's number? What?
Well, let me know. We'll
My
we'll-
Substack is coming soon, everybody.
all right. We'll jump into our 10 things to remember. This is always fun. We've all picked out some things from this past year, and am I the first one up? Yeah, I am.
Number 10.
All right. 10 things to remember. Number 10. I'm going to call this one Buy the Hype, or you can, subtitle Shoot Your Shot.
You usually sell the hype. It's very profitable.
This is more a little bit of a strategy storyline here, where if you have a signal that a player may be on their way to a career season in the first few weeks of the year, and you have the conviction, you are the believer in this player, I want you to remember this will be the only opportunity and chance that you have to get the player before one of those legendary seasons begin. Let me explain, because Saquon, Chase, Lamar, Bowers, these were players that became entirely untouchable on people's rosters over the course of the year. And look, we all go into week one with a tremendous amount of anticipation, but the only way that you're going to get true game changers onto your roster would be early season trades before those seasons get solidified. Now, I am not pretending that is an easy thing to do, to buy into a week or two of performances or the way an offense is running. But players do become untradeable over the course of the year. And, I can kind of think of 2 years ago, after a few weeks, some people, they sold CeeDee Lamb when he was sitting at number 1. That was a bad idea. If you bought CeeDee Lamb, you got a league winner early in the year because you bought the outlier season that ended up being a full outlier season. One of the reasons I want to focus on this too is there's a lot of performances earlier in the year where, we talk about week 1, there's certain players that pop off and have an incredible week 1 that aren't going to keep having great weeks. Sometimes it's the best time of year to make a 3-for-1 or 2-for-1 trade for a top-tier talent because your roster's filled with players that have had kind of, okay, it's a good week here, a good week there. There's a lot of guys on the free agent market. You make a splash, you trade 2-for-1, you trade 3-for-1. You buy the hype on somebody that you truly believe can be a difference maker. They're actually acquirable right then, and you can go out and pounce on the most valuable time in the waiver wire to fill those other spots if you trade a 3-for-1 or 2-for-1 away. So to me, it's what's our objective when we play? It's to win the entire league. It's not to be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
If you do have a conviction, you see Saquon through a week or two, and it's more than the fantasy numbers. It's, whoa, that offensive line. Whoa, that he looks like vintage Saquon. You're not getting him later.
Yeah, you can learn a lot through those first few weeks, and obviously sometimes it's going to misdirect you. You're going to get a Sammy Watkins, and you can get that wrong. But it's also it's not too hard to tell the difference sometimes. Like, for instance, after week 1 last year, we came in and had a quick question of, like, what were you just completely changed on in one week? Brock Bowers was one of those things where it was like he's legit.
You knew it week 1.
You knew it week 1. Brock Bowers, you just went and watched him, and you're like, oh, okay.
That's not an 8th round draft.
No,
pick.
that is a great player. Halfway through the season, you couldn't pry Brock Bowers off of anyone unless it was their cold, dead body. And so
even then, you may not be able to get him.
Yeah, because he had Brock Bowers' strength gripping that player. But, yeah, I would say that this is a good strategy because to win the championship, you go back and you look at the players on championship rosters, you're going to find a lot of Jamar Chase. You're going to find a lot of Lamar Jackson. You're going to find those players who had the dominant season. So, yeah, you take a swing and you miss, and you didn't get that player, but the what that player does for you is not the same as two good players. It's way more valuable.
And maybe a way to narrow that down, because obviously Sammy Watkins having a great week 1, that doesn't fit the category. The category to me is if there's a group of players in the first 2 rounds that you could make preseason arguments of, okay, their best case scenario is they're a top 3 guy, even though they're being drafted at wide receiver 5 or 6. If you have those storylines and you start to see that validated early, that might be the only opportunity you have the entire year to put a Jamar Chase. I mean, I had a better opportunity later, but it might be your only chance. And so and
it's like it's so ingrained. And look, if you look around fantasy football shows, everything is, trade high. And it's like, sometimes
buy high, they go higher.
Sometimes, yes. Like you're like, I'm right now. It looks like I'm buying like NFL terms. Like when Patrick Mahomes got his contract extension, it was, oh my goodness, look how much money Mahomes got. And now we're, a handful of years later, like Patrick Mahomes is severely underpaid compared to what he means compared to the market.
Yeah, and again, it gives you opportunities if you are moving multiple players away for one to go take advantage of the free agent market early. So making early season trades is hard for people to do because you get attached to your draft capital. So if you have guys struggling, just remember things change very quickly, something we'll see more and more throughout this top 10 list. Moving on.
Number 9.
And I'm calling this one start at the top, and it was just watching last year, like, there are some coaches out there that we need to trust this coach. We need to believe in that coach's offense. The thing that really spurred this for me was Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. The the doubt over Kirk Cousins leaving and getting the huge money from Atlanta. It's like, well, now what do we got? Well, we got J.J. McCarthy. We got Sam Darnold. What's going on here? Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in NFL. Fine. Jamar Chase, that's fine. A top 2. But, like, he would slide in first rounds because we were so nervous about who's going to be throwing him the ball. I just don't trust.
Do you remember how negative the offseason for Minnesota was overall?
Oh, my gosh,
you know, where Addison got in trouble. And it was like the team was falling apart.
And the McCarthy injury.
So and Addison's another huge piece of it. It's not just Justin Jefferson, who I saw in some drafts go late first round. So I know there's some leagues out there like, yeah, he still got drafted as the second wide receiver. Yes, but there were leagues out there where he fell real far compared to where Justin Jefferson would have gone if Kirk Cousins were back. He would have been the first or the second overall pick. And it's look what Kevin O'Connell had done with Minnesota. You know, Cousins was in 2022 the QB7. In 2023, through the first 8 weeks, he was the QB4. But then we saw Josh Dobbs be a top 5 quarterback in his first 2 games. Nick Mullins was a top 12 quarterback fantasy-wise in 3 of 4 starts. Like, O'Connell had proven to us that he can get it done. Now, yes, it's okay to be somewhat pessimistic and have some doubt, but for these coaches who are just great for the offensive side of football, trust in what they're doing. Because, like, Jefferson, yeah, he slid a little bit. Addison was left for dead in drafts. And Addison was a very usable player, especially over the second half there. So it's when there is a coach who has proven that they can get production, and production when you feel like there is just absolutely no chance that it's going to be able to happen, trust in that coach. I'm saying that, like the Minnesota Vikings this year, if it's J.J. McCarthy, I'm going to give Kevin O'Connell the benefit of the doubt. Guys like
who are your coaches?
Yeah. So O'Connell is in there for me. Sean McVay is in there.
Shanahan?
Kyle Shanahan is in there, and Matt LaFleur is in there for me for Green Bay.
Yeah.
Andy Reid should be, but Andy Reid has figured out this is how I can win Super Bowls. So it's not always going to be a high-powered offense for Andy Reid. I trust that he's going to figure out how to win a football game, but I'm speaking specifically for
maybe
fantasy
he learned
football.
A little something this year.
Yeah, maybe.
Wonder. I'm on the bubble. You know, it wasn't the for Sean Payton. Sean Payton to me
he's on the bubble of you just trust that he's going to figure it out.
He's been historically a great offensive producer, and this year with a rookie.
Yeah,
they figured some stuff out,
yeah.
And they had a good passing game. So their running game was trash, but he's, to me, like, if you want to be a little early in that and add him to the list, yeah. I think he applies.
All right. Your turn, Jay.
Number 8.
I call this the pendulum swings. Fantasy football, we are so binary. It's like this or that. You know, it's like there's not enough nuance, and you don't always take advantage of where you see people overreacting, swinging the pendulum too far based on what happened last year. Perfect example here, you look at quarterbacks over the last several years, it was always elite quarterback. Right? You'd have Breeze and Brady and Rodgers. They're high draft picks in the first round or whatever, and then people started to figure out, like, no, it's late round quarterback. That's how you win. That's the super. And then Mahomes and Lamar Jackson came, and then, you know, they were late round picks. So now everyone goes and does the late. Now it's a game of chicken at your drafts. You're like, who's going to go last? I'm not even going to draft quarterback. You know?
So late, I'll waiver wire him.
And so looking at the last couple of years, at the first 2 rounds, there's been kind of this battle between, is it better to have, you know, first-round wide receivers or better to have first-round running backs? So you go back to 2020, that's the year Christian McCaffrey, you know, broke fantasy and wide receivers sucked. The following year was like 10 running backs in the first round, 1 wide receiver. And a couple years ago, or two seasons ago, there were a lot of running back injuries, and wide receivers were very, very good. This last season in PPR leagues, there were only 3 running backs that were drafted in the first round. You had CMC, that didn't work out. Bijan Robinson, great, and Brees, and that was it. And the rest was chock full of wide receivers. And so what happened this last year was that the value, because the pendulum kind of swings too far, the value was now in the running backs that were pushed down, the really elite running backs that weren't there. So when I look at teams that won championships, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyron Williams, Derrick Henry, these were monstrous values because they didn't cost you that top 5 pick.
Because of the pendulum swing.
Because of the pendulum. They weren't bad picks. They were great running backs, but everyone wanted to get in on the wide receivers. I think it's going to happen in reverse. I think this year, because of the success of those running backs and some of the failure of some of the wide receivers, you've got the Marvin Harrison busts at the, you're going to have a little bit more fear. Yeah, Tyreek. So now I expect this year, it's a little too early to know, but I do think that this year, one of the lessons I want to learn is look for the value, the really good players who positionally are getting pushed down into the second round. I think you are going to find real value on stud wide receivers being pushed in the second based on last year. So this is like a thing to remember over a couple years.
Okay, makes sense. Number 7.
Number 7.
See? It's number 7.
Yeah.
Told you.
You called that.
The second guy was better.
I got these buttons and I said it anyways. Here's what I want you to remember. That the schedule, it's a lie.
What?
The schedule is a bit of a lie because the
cake is a lie.
The cake is a lie. Nice. It's just not that predictable year to year to look at matchups defensively and forecast too far in the future. There's too much turnover on defense year over year. Just take a look at this from 2023 to 2024. If you went into last year, you thought that you had tough matchups for quarterbacks. If you played the Panthers, or if you played the Ravens, or if you played the Chiefs, or you played the Cowboys. Panthers were number 1 against quarterbacks last year, 31st. That was the swing from 1 to 31. Ravens, number 3 against quarterbacks, they swung to 22. Cowboys, 8th best against quarterbacks, dead last against quarterbacks last year. This is true for all the positions. You have massive changes. Personnel, we just went through a coaching changes episode, right? And coordinators on both sides of the ball changed tremendously year to year. It's just a mixed bag. And so if you are starting to look at your early season schedule and think you have guaranteed production from certain players, or as you're manufacturing trades in the beginning part of the year and you're saying, well, this guy's got a tough playoff schedule, it's just probably a lie. And we've only had one fantasy defense going all the way back 24 years that has repeated as the number 1 defense in back-to-back years. And only 6 times in that entire stretch have they even finished in the top 5. Like, it's just very difficult. Injuries, right? There's just so many changes that happen. You do not get a lay of the land, and we don't even put our strength of schedule tool up and update it with the new stats until a few weeks into the year. But until you're into week 6, week 7, you really don't know what the playoff matchups are going to look like. You talk about adjustments, right? Remember the Denver Broncos defense, and it gave up 70 points to Miami,
yep.
Which, by the way, destroyed their metrics for the entire year. And then they became a shutdown defense over the back half of the year. Defensive coordinators make adjustments. Injuries happen. And so one of the things I think is valuable to remember is just that the schedule is a lie in the sense that you can't repeat what you got last year positionally very often. All right. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with the top 6. All right, it's back to you, Mike.
Number 6.
All right, with this one, I'm going to highlight, and I'm for today's show, I'm calling them drift players. And with the type of drift I'm talking about in racing. So
now, not Tokyo Drift, though.
No,
not like the wheels are going crazy in the back.
I'm talking about the actual, you are in NASCAR and you're drifting. And if you're not familiar with that term, that means that you slide your car in just behind whoever's in front of you, and it's physics. That car in front of you has a much higher wind resistance, and the player and the car in the back is using less fuel, less power to go, and then you're able to pass because you're able to generate a little bit more speed, and you're letting the person in front of you do more work than you. And it's maybe I'm bringing it up to like have a little bit more faith in these type of players. It hit like a son of a gun last year. So Derrick Henry, Barkley, Jacobs, and even Stephon Diggs, they all changed teams, and changing teams at that point in your career it's not always great. And I mean, these guys have that crew of 4, except Jacobs isn't really that old, but like age was a question for them, and that was the reason for the doubt. And now in hindsight, we're like, oh, of course, Saquon Barkley on the Eagles, but I'm bringing this up of who are they replacing? And the player that they are replacing, was that guy the engine, or was this already a super high-powered offense? The Baltimore Ravens, we had Gus Edwards score a bajillion touchdowns 2 years ago. Gus Edwards was not the foundational engine of the Baltimore Ravens. He was just a part of it. Same with DeAndre.
He was drifting.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift 2 years ago with the Eagles. We all, we're shocked of this resurgence of why is Swift doing so good? And then you see, oh, well, look at the size of the gap the offensive line has opened up for him. So of course Saquon Barkley is going to work. I was a huge doubter of Stephon Diggs. I thought, there's a reason Buffalo got rid of him, and he's washed. While he wasn't a superstar before the ACL tear, he was still very usable and was a great draft pick up to that point. So I don't have the list of players yet because their free agency hasn't happened, the draft hasn't happened, but it's putting just never overdo anything in fantasy, but putting a little bit more stock in to if a player who has been historically great goes to a team and replaces a mediocre mid-level starter, you should be even more excited about it. And in hindsight, I get it. These all sound real super obvious, but Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley they weren't top 3 running backs being drafted. I think Barkley was like RB8, RB7, RB8 right around there.
You know what's kind of valuable in the context of that argument, Mike, is that there are 32 teams. But a lot of them are genuinely actually dumb. And sometimes we give too much credit when they let go, like when Derrick Henry gets to leave town and Saquon leaves town in New York, and these players leave these rosters. Sometimes we can be like, well, they must know something we don't know.
Yes.
The truth is they're stupid.
We all watched.
They're dumb.
We watched the Giants' Hard Knocks.
Yeah, they actually are.
It didn't go well.
They ruined Hard Knocks offseason for everyone else.
Yeah,
it was such a good idea.
It was cool to see those things, but then they were so bad at those things that no team allowed them to be recorded during the offseason this year.
And there's probably a bit of a truth here, Mike. You're talking about these players joining offensive systems that are very good.
Yes, the offense is already cooking.
But also, like if a player leaves an overtly bad system and just goes to a neutral system, but they produce in the bad system, that's probably indicative of some success as well.
Well, this kind of all rolls into my next point, which is
number 5.
There you go. See, I set you up perfect.
I know you did, and I missed the button.
All right. Number 5, I call this remember Mike's advice.
Remember Mike's
advice.
What?
So
it was a good one.
It was a good one, and it actually was something I was paying attention to all season. And
what advice is that?
It was from a Tips and Tricks episode where Mike was talking about how to target late-round running backs. And it really worked out well. It makes sense. It goes completely with kind of more of what you're talking about, good offenses, good teams, avoiding bad teams. But it's a really important those guys that you draft late, they've all got giant question marks. They've got warts on them. There's not a reason they wouldn't be drafted late if there was not clear and obvious problems. So what do you pick? Do you pick the talented player? Maybe. But I think the right strategy is pick the talented team. Pick the good quarterback. Pick the team that could score points, because here's basically how it works. Every year, some running backs are drafted outside the top 24, but they finish within it. Over the last 5 years, 8.5 teams, actual teams, don't have a top 24 drafted running back on their roster. However, 5 players from those teams, on average, exceed the expectations and finish in the top 24. So how do you decide? And if you focus on the better teams versus focusing on the player's talent, I think you have a much higher hit rate of that happening. And you look at last season. You know, it was like now you might have gotten it wrong if you went Zach Moss, but Zach Moss, Chase Brown.
This is all in the framework of late round
running backs.
Yes. I just want to lay that out there when you said remember Mike's advice. This whole conversation's around identifying running backs in later rounds.
Yes, in the late round, when you're looking at running backs, target the good teams because Chase Brown became a league winner, was one of the best fantasy assets for where you got him. Obviously, it took Zach Moss going down, but what it also took was a Joe Burrow-led offense that scored nonstop, that opened up the running game. Other targets, you know, last year you had Dak Prescott on the roster and a projected good offense, and then Rico had a good season. You had J.K. Dobbins coming back. Okay, he's injured. He's coming back from hardship, but he's got Harbaugh and Herbert together. Like, that's a team that clearly could be good. So I was looking a quick run through of this year's ADP just to see a good example, because all the guys going late, you got Tank Bigsby, running back 38. What do you think about the Jags? I mean, I don't personally view Trevor Lawrence as a superstar.
You're just saying, do they profile as a winning team? Probably not.
Yeah, Tajay Spears, right around
Probably
there,
not.
running back 40. Doesn't appear that way. Charbonnet is the running back 32. To me, the Seattle Seahawks, maybe without Lockett, maybe, but I don't look at them as like, yeah, that's an offense I really have to have a part of. Brian Robinson, the running back 35 right now.
Yep.
He's got Jaden Daniels. This is an offense that looks like on fire. Like,
that's good.
Maybe I'll lean towards the guy that could be part of a special offense. There are those players going in the late rounds. I'm going to remember that advice from last year and target high-quality team running backs, high-quality teams when I'm targeting running backs in the late rounds.
I like that, and I like the example from this year, already seeing where players are being drafted, because – you know, people get fatigued with certain names, or like, I don't think anybody is out here saying, okay, Brian Robinson is the physical talent of some of those other players that you mentioned necessarily, but the team situation is so much more promising. So that's good advice.
Number 4.
All right, I'm going to call this one plant the seeds and work the room. Okay. I got a little bit of
quite the name.
I got a little bit of
this was the one you coward.
I also had it subtitled "People Are Dumb."
Yeah, that's the real tip.
But I
remember that.
I'm calling it "Plant the Seeds and Work the Room" because I've been doing this a really, really long time, and I don't know if there's anything that gives me more joy, that doesn't, that warms the cockles of my heart, like the disgust of my friends when I accomplish a trade that they find to be improbable, unlikely, stupid. If I can pull off a trade that makes them want to leave the league out of their frustration, which I feel like I've done to you many times.
Yeah, you have.
It brings me great joy. And people are like, how does this happen? And I made the point this year on one of my trades. Look, I just hit accept. But you see, the truth is that the key to successful trading, what I want people to remember is that you need to become a lobbyist of sorts. Why do lobbyists get what they want? Is because there's a time investment involved. It's not volume. Like, there was a time in my trading past in which I might have accomplished some trades by just being more active. I don't send out as many offers as I do. I'm too old for that.
You mean as you used to?
As I used to, yes.
Because you do send out as many offers as you do.
As I do, right. Yeah.
Like I just exactly the same number.
You need to plant the seeds and work the room from the beginning of the year. Everybody has these problems. How do you get trades done? How do you accomplish trades? Send offers out. Do the due diligence of what people actually need on their roster. Plant the seeds of the type of talent you might be willing to give up. Figure out who they're fans of. Who's their type? What's their tempo? Plant the seeds early and keep conversations warm and pounce when the time is right. It takes a long time in fantasy football to build relationships. And you need to actively seek the benefit of both sides. You need to have conversations about trades that don't end in trade offers every single time, but in, hey, you know what? A couple weeks from now, let's come back to this conversation in case your team is doing poorly then or better than and I'm doing poorly. Hey, this might meet both of our needs because in 2 weeks from now, you might be selling for next year. And what I benefited from this year, be active in association with the NFL news that is transpiring. Things happen when news breaks, when Amari Cooper gets traded to the Bills and Josh Allen, it starts to rekindle some of the conversations that happened earlier in the year. And the truth is, we know this from 15, 20 years of playing this game. Value is subjective. Everybody makes a determination when a trade goes through, you won, you lost, and they're wrong all the time. Trading is a dance, and you need to be in a position where you have built relationships with people and you have understood their teams. And it's sometimes too much of an investment for people to make, and that's why some people get trades done and some people don't. And also, when a good trade comes along, smash the accept button. Don't freaking sit there and go back and forth on minor parts of a deal.
Yeah,
I never do that.
You clicked that accept button. Now, to be fair, if you get a deal like that, everyone's going to click accept because they're going to see the nonsense that it was. But afterwards,
I know people listening are like, "What are you talking about?" I traded Njoku, Amari Cooper, and a second-round pick for Jamar Chase when the Cooper trade happened because I had been talking with a manager in our league for many weeks about whether they'd ever trade Jamar Chase. They said no. And then the Cooper trade happened, and they got excited about Cooper.
Cooper goes to Buffalo to Josh Allen.
They sent a very what do you call that? Like not impromptu, but impulsive. They sent a quick, impulsive offer, and I wasn't going to mess around with fine-tuning the offer.
Oh, it was funny because you clicked accept, and then
instantly.
afterwards, you're like, "Ugh, I wish I had. Like, should I have changed my tight end?" The answer is no. No. You just needed to make sure that deal gets done.
But start having conversations around players that you might like, and just wait for them to come to fruition.
Yeah, another way you could say that, just if you're taking it from your example, is trade bad, worthless players for Jamar Chase. Just do that. Remember to do that.
Number 3.
All right, I'm up.
Still pissed about it.
I didn't win. I lost in the title game to Al Borland over there.
Yeah, you did.
Number 3, we're going rookie wide receivers. They're still a good bet, and bargain shop them. So look, the
rookie wide receivers.
Yeah, rookie wide receivers, and we're talking about in your draft. Yes, Marvin Harrison did not work out. Malik Neighbors certainly did, and then guys who went later, guys who were not the headline rookie wide receivers last year. You know, the sensation that is Brian Thomas Jr. Ladd McConkey had a great year, and
my little lad.
Like later rookies that were going, you had Ladd, Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas Jr., and Adonai Mitchell. Yes, 2 of those guys were catastrophic busts for fantasy football. Not every single one is going to hit, but this is a game of probability and increasing your odds of success and knowing where and when to take your chances in the draft. And it's rookie wide receivers, man. They just continue to get it done, and they still go. It's even better when they're going later in the draft because your investment. Oh, Mike, the voice of public opinion.
But Mike,
yes,
I thought this year's draft class of wide receivers is no good.
That is true. That definitely is true. And you know what? I bet we see that in ADP when we're all looking at where rookie wide receivers being drafted. People are like, they all stink.
You want to know one of the reasons why
they're still going to be NFL players?
It's going to happen forever. It's going to happen forever because they go to the worst teams. Jalen Waddle went in the top 10 in the NFL draft. Everyone was disgusted by Miami's offense.
Yes.
They were like, "Oh, there's no chance." Brian Thomas Jr. goes to Jacksonville. Oh, he's a good player, but it's Jacksonville. It's going to happen forever.
Yeah, it just last year, Thomas and McConkey. Before that, Rashee Rice, Puka, Garrett Wilson's rookie year, and do remember, Garrett Wilson when he was a rookie, people didn't want him.
Nope.
And he's still, and while he wasn't Brian Thomas Jr. finishing top 5, he still finished as a top 20 fantasy wide receiver. Amon-Ra the year before that, Jalen Waddle the year before that. Like, it just keeps happening, and they are good bets, and more often than not, they are lower ADP. So the investment, the risk when you're drafting is not high, but your reward is so great, especially over. And remember, when you draft a rookie, look for signs, but over the second half of the season, that's generally when they really start to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense.
Number 2.
Number 2 is the second-year system leap. This is a lot gets made about the second-year wide receivers, taking that leap. But not enough is thought about with the systems that people play in, the continuity that matters. And if you look back at this last year, well, first of all, you don't realize how insanely year to year these offenses are really changing. 21 of the current offensive coordinators have been with their respective teams fewer than 2 years. That's 2/3 of the league. The longest tenured offensive coordinators in the league at Green Bay, Miami, Minnesota, and the Giants are in their position for just 3 years. So it's just like
Which, I mean, you're really talking about not a play caller, not a play caller, not a play caller.
Right. That's why they've been
Not
able
a
to
play
help.
caller.
That's
All
why
four-
they've been able to hold their job.
All
been
4 of
poached.
them, their head coaches have been the play caller.
But that second year, we can see players take that leap forward. For instance, remember 2 years ago. Oh, Todd Monk is coming to Baltimore.
Very excited.
So excited. He had a track record of massive offensive output, and we were so excited to see what Lamar Jackson and the run game, the pass game could do in this Todd Monken system. And you know what? It was okay. It was okay. But that second year, when they were in that system for a while, all of a sudden, every player on that team was, Lamar Jackson.
Dude, Rashad Bateman
was resurgent. Derrick Henry was great. Lamar had the most top 12 fantasy finishes in a single season, 16 of 17 games. You had Buffalo. Now, say what you will. Maybe, Joe Brady in his second year in his system, I thought maybe he would get figured out. He gets figured out sometimes. But it turns out that his run game that he wanted to establish the second year in that system, you had James Cook go nuts. He tied or broke the rushing
the franchise
record for touchdowns, which that was the knock on him. Even Denver, Sean Payton there for 2 years and a good offensive mind, gets his quarterback who fits his system. Cortland Sutton is great. And so I think that there's very few opportunities for that second year because a lot of times people are replaced after 1 year. So here are some examples of teams I'm paying attention to coming up in 2025 who get that second year, that continuity from their offensive coordinator. Atlanta. You got Zach Robinson there. Maybe Kirk Cousins was holding him back. I mean, in the final 2 games of the season, Michael Penix, they were averaging 31 points per game, 69 plays per game. That is so nice in the top 5. They've got a great offense. If Penix steps forward.
That one will be interesting because it's sort of Penix's first year in the system, but not really.
He's
there in practice.
Yeah, he's there the whole season. Yeah. I mean, that's like Mahomes played, 1 game his rookie year, came out next year, did not look like a rookie by any means. And so you've obviously got talent there with Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. You think they're happy they drafted Michael Penix?
I think they are right now happy they drafted Michael Penix.
Pretty good decision.
But it's the inverse. You think they're happy they gave Kirk Cousins all that money?
No.
That was the problem. Both couldn't be true.
You have Carolina going into the second year with Dave Canales, and they seem to figure something out with Bryce Young at the end of the year. So maybe that is an opportunity for a leap forward.
Yeah.
Greg Roman and the new Los Angeles Chargers, the Ravens West, going into year 2. You saw this. Herbert, the first half of the year, was not utilized right. They were figuring this out. It was the first year in the system. That's a team, to me, that I could see going into the top 5 as far as scoring on a regular basis. They've got a great quarterback. They're going to have continuity this next year. And then
maybe they'll have DK Metcalf.
Yeah, and then the Washington Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury gets year 2. They've added Deebo Samuel now, an improved offensive line, and Jaden Daniels could become an MVP-type player. So those teams, I think, they have the chance to be hyper undervalued because you don't see the leap forward. So I'm going to remember last year's second-year offensive coordinator leaps and try to replicate it in 25.
All right, Mike, help us bring it home with our last thing to remember.
Number 1.
Let's act now and get it done.
Get her done.
We as human beings, we like to if there's something I can do tomorrow, you're darn tootin', I'm doing that thing tomorrow. I am not doing that today. And then tomorrow shows up, and I'm like, yeah, I can swing this next week.
Eventually you say, I should have done that yesterday.
Yes. So
Yeah, we're interested in you having fun in your leagues.
Yeah, so, just like my diet. One of these days.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's been pushed off for a very, very long time.
Day after tomorrow.
I usually go with Monday until
it was your
Monday
birthday week, Mike, and then
thank
you know what I mean?
See, everything's okay.
It's your birthday month.
We're talking about your fantasy football league, and yes, it's early in the off season right now, but this is when you really got to start thinking about this stuff. If you're the champ and you got an in-person draft, be working on it right now. Mr.
What do you mean what do you mean working on? What am I supposed to do?
I mean, you're setting up your celebration, how you're going to rub it in. Al, do you need to take out a loan or something?
No, we got it on lock.
Okay.
Oh, you've already planned.
He's already thinking about it.
We do.
I'll be honest. I'm a little worried about what he's going to do.
Oh, I am very, very excited.
You should be.
I am very excited. But that's it. Get things ready for your celebration, because the draft will, just like everything else, it'll be here before you realize it. If someone in your league shouldn't be in that league anymore, now is—
You're talking about the turds.
I'm talking about the turds. You got to flush them. And right now is a great time to do that. Like, going up to someone is, I know you've been in the league for a while and our draft's in 2 weeks, but we're going to replace you. Doing it right now, I think
that's easy. They're already sick of it.
This is the best time emotionally to handle those types of things. If you want to start figuring out what your new rules or scoring settings that you want to implement. So just look at your league, whatever it is that you want done to make it better. Start actually doing that right now.
Yeah, take your league to the next level. And we, if you need to find non-turds, footclanleagues.com, our Discord community, you can find people on there to replace the turds in your league. And look, some people are turds, yes. Some people are just aimless, though. You know what I mean? Like they're just in it because they're in it, and maybe they're begging you to say, "Hey, if your heart's not in it,
I release you.
I release you from this obligation of this thing you have to check that you don't want to do." And a great league can be brought down by one or two absent managers.
Yeah.
So, get your house in order, get things organized, make sure you're happy with what your league is for next year. So that'll be our last thing to remember here. And if you have your own, little tidbit of information, something that you're wanting to remember for the new year, feel free to share it in the comments. If you're watching over there on YouTube, you can leave comments on Spotify if you're following the show there. And guess what? Free agent frenzy next week.
Oh, my goodness.
We already have an opportunity for teams to, Monday, they'll get to tamper legally. We got to come up with a new way to describe that.
It's just early negotiations.
That's what it should just be called.
The
NFL was the people who called it early tampering.
I know. It's like, ooh, you can't tamper normally, but
here
you go.
Tampering,
it implies negative.
It implies an illegal activity.
Yeah,
right?
I think the legal word actually implies, like, it's the fact that it's legal tampering, like legal murder.
Yeah, legal stealing. Period. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
the first hour at the store you can legally steal.
If you just called it tampering, period, it'd be okay-ish. But legal tampering means it's like, wait a minute.
I like it when it was tampering. Because you're like, it's happening. I'm getting away with something.
So next Tuesday we'll talk about free agent frenzy. We're going to record and release that show early Tuesday morning. And then on Thursday, the free agent frenzy will continue. We'll talk about all the moves that have been made. We got the mailbag. So, yeah, lots going on. And a reminder, like the Dynasty Pass within the Ultimate Draft Kit is getting its post-combine update.
It's
done.
Yeah.
And it's done. So the next update is live, ultimatedraftkit.com. It's part of the UDK Plus. If you're playing Dynasty, if you're interested in these rookies, if you're interested in the team opportunities and all of what's going to happen in free agency, basically anything going on in the fantasy football world from right now until draft season, you want the Dynasty Pass, and that's available discounted, pre-order pricing, ultimatedraftkit.com.
Our new rookie mock draft is up.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I jumped into the number 1 spot in that mock draft.
Nice.
To build the suspense. You don't know who I took. You're going to have to find out. All right, footclangiveaway.com if you want a chance to win that signed Drake London jersey. Just go to footclangiveaway.com. Free to enter over there. We'll catch you soon.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.